2 with Ekene on transactional versus transformational relationships.
One of the topics that caught my attention when I started following you was your discussion on transactional relationships. What made you want to explore that?
I had experienced a few. The transactional. So that's the thing. I'll say the transactional video just like took off.
Mm-hmm.
And till today, I'm still getting so much sort of, because so many people I think needed, it spoke truth to power for so many people, where I talked about some people are transactional and other people are transformational, you know, and what does it feel like to interact with each person, and how you must put boundaries in place when you're dealing with transactional people. And for me, it was because I had dealt with that. Like I had dealt with people who are, you know, they don't even realize it some of the time. And that's what I said in the video. A lot of people don't even know they're operating in that way. They come in and they see value that they can extract. And so they come close to you. And I had seen it where people come and I think they're coming because they're friends and they like me, but all of whatever it is they're doing was predicated on, what can I get from you? Right. Can you get me into certain rooms? I know you're friends with this person. Can I ride your coattails or whatever it was? It was all about, what can I get from you? And, you know, I had been through, like I said, I remember this experience. I had moved when I got divorced. And before my divorce was even final, I left my home because I wanted a fresh start. Left my home and I downsized, or I would say I right-sized. And I live in Atlanta, and I right-sized for what made sense for my daughter and I'm a business owner, and I didn't know what the financial reality would be with her dad and whether or not he would contribute or not. So I made some good decisions to be wise about how I was living and spending. I maintained certain parts of our lifestyle, but I downsized certain things. And I chose a smaller place to live. And I live in Atlanta where, you know, Atlanta has a little bit of big energy. People want to, you know, luxury, black girl. And it was in the era black girl luxury and all of that. And while my home was always beautifully appointed, it was not necessarily an iconic womanhood palatial mansion. And I remember someone came to see me. Someone who knew, actually more than one person, this happened. And they came to see me and you could see her face, like, you know, because sometimes our face tells the truth, even when our mouth saying something different. And she looked around. Now, I've long since moved from that place into a place that is more like what I want. But that was where I needed to be for that season, actually. And I'm so grateful for that place. You could see, and I'm telling you, she dropped me like a hot potato.
Wow.
Like I had no value whatsoever. And she wasn't the only one. There were other people that I remember. One person, the way I used to pray with her, and a lot of women don't even realize, from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. They don't realize the depth of their own internalized misogyny, because in her mind, my success, and it means that she really did believe that I would not be successful now that I was no longer married, or my value had so diminished and it was dropped. And so I experienced some of that. I'm like, oh, okay, let's see what's going on here, right? And I had to learn. And I also had experienced people who would come, take, right? Scramble. And, you know, I always say there's somebody, she's a social climber, and she scrambled on top of me so fast, stepped on my head to jump on top. I was like, okay, now I know what that is. And why I came up with that was, and this is the thing, sometimes we hold so much anger for people when they behave in human ways.
Yes.
But part of the power of forgiveness, it allows you to understand they're only behaving in human ways, and it gives you more enlightenment. And so I was able to distance myself from the hurt of the experience, forgive them, and learn and say, okay, this is what's happening. They're operating in transactional ways.
Right.
And if you see in the video, I talk about evolving into a transformational place. I do think that transactional can be a stop on the, you know, on your human process. Like if you are in a place where you are ruled by fear, ruled by scarcity, you are not as in touch with your own power and access to abundance, you will tend to be transactional.
And what are the red flags, whether you're a person who engages in that or you are with someone that is using you in that way?
I think that some of the red flags, I'm glad you said some, right, are one, if you are being measured, your value is only based on what people can get from you. And so you have to pay attention to if people are only reaching out to you when they need things from you, and when you need something, they're never there. It's only about, if you are going somewhere fabulous, then they want to associate with you. But on the days that you're just sitting at home in your pajamas, they have nothing to say to you. So that's a red flag. And it's something that we should also, I like how you said, whether you're exhibiting it, we should examine ourselves. Like, are you available for other people? Are you only interested in it when they're available for you? Because sometimes that is real. Sometimes we can be self-absorbed and self-centered. I've had to do that work for myself.
Right.
And ask, wait, hold on, it's not all about you. Sit and listen to someone else, and how can you pour into someone else's life, right? So if you're not asking, how can I pour into you? If you're only thinking how I can take from you or how I can receive from someone else, those are all red flags, right? So that's one of them. I think the other red flag is always putting results over relationships, right? And process over people. One of the things, and I'm not a business coach, even though in my mastermind, we focus on business results. I always say I'm not a pure business coach because I'm a success coach, soulful success. Business is part of that, but business is not the only thing. And sometimes I think it's okay to leave a little money on the table if you can pick up a little bit more heart.
Right.
Now, there's some people that will disagree with me vehemently. I remember one lady that I still think she's an amazing person, but I remember she had a very powerful conversation with me that was maybe challenging. I had invited her. I wanted to participate in something with her. I wanted us to do something together. She said, Ekene, I don't think our vision aligns. And I said, oh, why do you think that? She said, because right now I'm in a season where I think that I want to get rich by any means possible. I said, I really respect your candor. I think you're right. We don't align because I don't agree with that. For me, that's not what I
Right.
I want to be rich. Don't get it twisted, but I don't feel like it's worth any sacrifice.
Right.
And so I definitely think we're not in alignment. And so I think when you have that mentality, you will be transactional, whether you recognize it or not. Now, that being said, there are a lot of people that said different things in the comments that were interesting that I'd like to debunk some myths here.
Sure.
So one of the things was people have this idea that being transformational means that you don't take care of business. You take care of business. I run a business. I charge for my time. I don't charge for my time. I charge for my value, right? So I run a business. Now, what makes me transformational means I can be generous. I can give more. I can show up in places that I'm not necessarily being paid for if I so choose to, or if I feel led to do that, right? I lead with love, but it does not mean I don't take care of my business. And so there were people in there saying, oh, I used to be transformational and then I became transactional. I said, no, that wasn't transformational. You not wanting to charge when you should be charging, you cheating your business and cheating your staff because you're too afraid to charge and you're people pleasing is not the same thing as being transformational. In fact, people pleasing is a form of transaction. It's just that you're not getting money, you're getting affection. You're being included. You want them to like you, and so you're not charging what you should charge. That's transaction.
Right.
So I wanted to debunk that. Let's shift away from this idea of thinking transformational means, that you just give everything away. And that being transformational means, oh, just use me, abuse me. No. And being transformational means people can pull you and tongue you and drag you any way they want. That's actually not true. If you even think about the way Jesus moved, he moved with intention.
Right.
He was the ultimate transformational person. He moved with intention. You could not get Jesus to do what he was not going to do when he was not going to do it.
Right.
And so this idea that being transformational means that you give everything to everyone at the expense of yourself, that's not the same thing. You must have your boundaries. You must have your intentions. You must have wisdom in the way you move. But the difference between being transactional and transformational primarily is that transformation means I lead with love. And guess what? Sometimes love is tough.
Yes, absolutely. For someone who realizes that they are in a transactional relationship, what steps can they even begin to take to shift towards something more meaningful, emotional connection?
Oh, that's a good question. I hope I can answer that. It's a good question. I think that one, before you can have a transformational relationship with someone else, you have to have a transformational relationship with yourself. And you can't ask of others what you're not willing to do for yourself. And so the first is, are you willing to really look at yourself, hold yourself accountable, but at the same time, love yourself. At the same time, be compassionate to yourself. Hold yourself to a higher standard. That alone will begin to change the nature of the relationships around you. When you say, this is who I am, and I'm going to be caring for myself at a certain level, and I'm going to, like, for example, simple care, for example, for myself, I have a do not disturb button on my phone that I use regularly, right? And so
That's setting boundaries, right? We talked a little bit about boundaries before. That's a discussion we should have for a future show.
Yeah.
But yes, that's part of setting boundaries.
Yes, set the boundary. I remember when I first put the do not disturb on, and so at a certain time of the night, nothing comes in because I know that I need to wind down. It's part of my self-care. It's part of me being compassionate and being my best. I need to wind down and I have to discipline myself. And so I'm going to set that boundary and put it on do not disturb. And so if you call, it's not going to get through. I remember someone saying, but what if there's an emergency? And I remember someone who taught me this. He said, but are you 911? What can I do for you if there's an emergency? I can't help you. Call the right people when there's an emergency. Right. I can't really do anything for you when there's an emergency. And so that's an example of you raising your standards, and automatically people around you are going to begin to adjust. But the second thing that happens, I think, like I said, when you start to do your inner work and you really start to look at yourself and you really start to grow and you really start to, because you'll develop empathy because you'll see yourself. And then when you're having a conversation with someone else, you're able to do two things. You're able to understand where they're coming from. And you're able to say, I understand this is what you need and this is what you desire. But if we approach it this way, then it's not a win-win for each of us. And over time, it'll build resentment, right? Or you're able to say, I think perhaps you're missing this other aspect. And I don't think it's because you're a bad person. I think I'd like to give you another way of looking at it. Like you are able to meet them where they are, even as you invite them to grow, right? Mm-hmm. But then you also have the strength to recognize that some people are just not going to want to grow.
Right.
And so when you say to them, no, I don't think we should approach it this way, and they throw a tantrum, you don't take it personally. You let them have their tantrum. You let them be upset. And you do what you need to do. You're okay with that. And that's also part of that inner work, because a lot of times the reason why we have terrible relationships around us is we don't have the capacity to contain people being angry or upset with us.
Right.
That's okay. They're going to be okay.
Like you said before, people pleasing.
Yeah.
A lot of people do that.
Yes.
Just keep the peace. I want to get along. It doesn't matter what relationship. And that's what I like about this topic with transactional, whether it's in a relationship between you and your partner, family, or in a business setting, all of these types of behaviors can show up and you have to be aware of that. I think you touched on that a little bit. Can you just tell us a little bit about when transactional can be a positive if two people agree what that looks like, but when does it become abusive?
So here's the way I put that. I say you can conduct transactions without being transactional, right? Like, so transactions are part of business. Transactions are part of life. Transactions are necessary. You should be able to conduct transactions. And to your point, when two people agree, when we have clear-cut contracts, clear-cut, scope, we know what we're doing, then all is good. But when there's underhanded, behaviors trying to skew things in, one direction, that's a transactional scenario, right? And so your question was, how do you handle that?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll tell you this, like I've had experiences in business. You're going to have experiences like this. I remember I had shot those videos, and I remember getting into an agreement with some people to do a business transaction. We had a contract, right? We had a memorandum of understanding. Like we had talked about it in depth. However, I learned later they didn't operate in good faith, right? They came to the table clearly. I didn't realize this because I come in like, what are we going to do together? And at a certain point, I realized, wow, these guys are just not going to hold up their end of the bargain. what do I do? So I learned some critical things, right? I had allowed my name to be associated with the project in such a way that I now was, and that's part of why they were able to do that. My name was so important to me that it succeed because my name was on the hook. They could walk away. If it didn't succeed, it wouldn't have impacted their brand. It would have impacted mine. So I didn't make the best. I went back to look and say, okay, going forward, next time, if I'm ever going to engage in this sort of experience, what are some things I need to put in place to make sure that I'm equally as protected or more? Because I didn't really realize people could operate this way. Okay, now I have to go back and look.
Right.
So number one, forgive yourself. So I forgave myself, right? Number two, learn from it. So it doesn't mean I'm never going to go forward and collaborate or go forward and work with other people. Because a lot of people make these unwritten rules. I will never work with people again. I will never da-da-da. And they stay static and they don't grow. But you need to say, or even in love, some people are still, because they dealt with a transactional relationship in college, they are blocked from love for the rest of their lives.
Right.
But not everyone's the same, but you need new rules of engagement. So I created new rules of engagement for myself. I forgave myself for the errors in my judgment in the past. And the third thing I say is I don't burn bridges, but I recognize which bridges are too weak to walk across. And so those are people that I don't have any anger. Like, oh, no, wait, we're cool. Hey, how you doing? But will I do business with you again ever in life? No.
That's right. That's right. You learn from your mistakes.
That's right. Yeah. So I didn't go around talking about them everywhere. No one knew except the people that may have needed to know, but I filed it away. Yeah. Not safe. Not safe. Not safe. No, not safe to engage.
I guess it all comes back to the underlying theme throughout everything you've said is knowing your personal worth. Right. It starts from that. And that also can kind of affect how you view people too. The way we see ourselves sometimes can dictate how we walk into the world and what we see. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. This has been so insightful. I want to know where people can find you and if there's any other big projects that you're working on that we can connect with you there.
Yes, thank you. I've thoroughly enjoyed this as well. I look forward to connecting more with you, quite honestly.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure you've heard this before. You have such a beautiful smile. So I'm grateful that we're getting to see each other through.
Thank you. You too. I felt like I was looking at my twin for a second with these cheeks.
Okay. The fellow Igbo girl, Igbo from Haiti, Igbo from Nigeria. We're all the same. Yes. Yes, thank you. Thank you for this. This has been really good. And I'm so grateful that you offered your audience to help amplify the message. So where can you find me? I'm on Instagram at iconicwomanhood_coach. We are on TikTok as well, Iconic Womanhood Coach. And then YouTube, building out the channel. We're going to be on there more, Iconic Womanhood. How can we do work together? We have a membership platform called the Iconic Womanhood Circle. And all you have to do is go to iconicwomanhoodcircle.com. And I created that as a container where we can do the work together. And you don't just do the work with me, you do it in community with amazing women. And then we also have really beautiful experiences. We have these luxury mastermind experiences every year. And so this year we're going to Marrakesh and we're also going to Accra.
Now, this is Morocco?
Yeah, Morocco. 7 days. We have an incredible itinerary. And when we do these trips, what we do is we marry retreating with masterminding. And so a lot of people use it as it's a business expense as well, because we're doing business masterminding, right? But also we are working on ourselves. And so it's a connection to yourself. Like I said, the work that we do, and then your success planning. And so we have this really great itinerary. And then the other thing that I do when I go to different locations is I want you to connect to the local women in one way or another and leave with, a more international network. And so we've gone to Accra. This would be our third time in Accra. This is our first time in Marrakesh as Iconic Womanhood. And then the next places we have coming up in 2026, we have Asia. We have China on the line, and then we will have Senegal as well. And Africa is a major focus for us.
That's great.
Any wise person knows that Africa is
absolutely.
We want to make
On
sure.
my bucket list.
Yes,
So
well,
my
come
bucket
on.
list.
You have to come
Ghana
back to
too.
Nigeria.
Ghana. I have to
Yes,
go to Ghana.
come to Ghana, September. Our Ghana trip, Dr. Louissaint. You need to be there.
I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah. So as we wrap things up, any final thoughts or key takeaways you would like to share for anyone navigating relationships in today's world?
I think the final thing, or the key thing, is it starts and ends with you. Your work, what you do, like I think you said it earlier, like, your personal worth, all of that is knowing who you are, the inner work. And so often we think that that's work that we'll do when we get the time and we don't really invest in it. And then we want everything else to look good on the outside before.
Mhm.
But it starts from within, because wherever you go, there you are. You want a better relationship, better love relationship, better working relationships. It all starts with you doing that inner work. I am a living testimony to that. That changed my whole life, and it will change your life if you do the work. And doing the work isn't hard. It's just asking the deeper questions and having a culture of introspection, self-compassion, and having the courage sometimes to say, I need a guide on the journey.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Ekene. So we must do this again.
We must.